Okay, and we are live. Hello, everybody. Happy Sunday. Tonight we're talking about favorite SFR reads, and I am here with Nancy Cummings, YD Lamar, Julie K. Cohen, Lee Kirk, Cassie Keegan, and Revi Kavalich. Hello, thank you for joining us, everybody. A couple of links in the description one is for Bite Me MonsterCon coming up, hopefully in August, if we can get enough authors to participate. So if you want to see somebody there, please let them know, send them my way. Also join the event group. The author sign up link is in there for both MonsterCon and next year's Abduct SFRCon. And that's all the links I got for you. So we're going to jump in with our very first question, and that's going to be to Remy. And the question is, what was your first SFR read and what made you pick up that one particularly?
I can't believe you started with me. My first SFR read would have probably been this is going to sound so cliche, but my first actual science fiction romance was the Ice Planet Barbarian series. And TikTok convinced me to read that, and honestly, 20 books later, I was like, wow, am I still reading Ruby Dixon? What happened here? So, and at that point in time, I realized I really should invest in Kindle Unlimited. So it definitely sparked the whole science fiction kick for me.
Lee.
Okay, let's just be honest. If it hasn't happened in the last 48 hours, I don't remember. Yeah, no, I seriously do not remember what my first sci-fi romance was. I feel like I've been reading them forever, and so sorry.
Cassie.
Oh, I remember my first one. It was Joanna Lindsay's Warrior's Woman. I don't know if any of you remember that or have ever read it, but it was fantastic. And it was one of the first of its kind. It was like 1990. And I was probably too young to be reading it, but I didn't care. It was great. And it was wildly popular, and then no one wrote about it anymore. And so it wasn't until decades later that it took off. But shoot, I remember mine.
Nancy.
Well, before we started, Cassie's like, I bet we're not going to have the same ones. And you were wrong, Cassie Keegan. So I remember my first two, and I don't know which one technically came first because it was the 90s and I was in high school at the time, but one was Warrior's Woman, Joanna Lindsay. I know I read it because my best friend's mom had it and it was free. So that's why I read it. And the other one was Restorie by Anne McCaffrey, and it was at the library and I liked Anne McCaffrey. So that was just going through the Anne McCaffrey backlog at that point. So which one came first, I don't know, but they're both there in my mind as being some of the earliest.
I'm going to post a link to this in the notes, but also the original cover is so much better than the cover they have now. I'm posting that too because it was.
Oh, I don't know what the new one looks like. I remember the old one when she's like wearing purple and her hair's back and that high ponytail. It just looks like it's giving her.
Very.
Yeah.
YD.
This is a hard one. I mean, sci-fi wise, I was reading Isaac Asimov and was it Ray Bradbury, but romance wise, possibly The Ice Planet back in like 2015 or whenever. I think, I'm not even sure, but I'm assuming.
And Julie.
I'd have to say, first of all, I started off reading sci-fi, Star Trek specifically, and then I slid into romance with some Highlanders and stuff like that. But combining the two in terms of sci-fi and romance, probably Sharon Lee and Steve Miller's Lion in Universe, with Agent of Change, Local Custom, Conflict of Honors. And back then, the romance was much cleaner than it is today. But there was just this romance, this way that the characters dealt with each other that just, it resonated with me. And to this day, I can still go back and read those, and I don't feel like I'm missing anything by not having the graphic sex on the page. I love them. I mean, I still go back to them all the time.
Do you want to say to hi, everybody popping in here? If you have your first favorite SFR read, pop it in the comments so we can all know. My first one, I'm hoping someone can help me remember it, because I don't remember the name and I don't remember the author. And I actually remember very little about the storyline itself, but I remember I loved it. And then I remember I looked for sci-fi after that. And it was actually science fiction with like a tiny bit of romance in it. And I remember it was a guy and a girl, and one of them was a prisoner on the other ship, and the cover was like old school spaceship with like funky lettering. And there was these like little monsters, like these little cute little like panda bear kind of aliens on the ship with them all the time. And that's literally all I remember. But I remember that I loved it so much, and I can't for the life of me remember what it was, but I wish I could find it again. And then after that, it was S.E. Smith that I found and fell in love with sci-fi. Second question. What are some authors who do SFR that you like to read in your downtime? How have they influenced your own books? Let's go to Nancy first.
Oh boy, I made a list of some of my favorite authors. Well, I think Ruby Dixon, pretty much, I read everything by her. While I had read some SFR in the high school, it didn't click that it was a thing until I read Ice Planet Barbarians. And I realized, oh my God, this is amazing. And then I want more of it. So I read pretty much all of Ruby Dixon. I really like Anna Carvin. Arleth, I love her books. She should write faster. I like Poppy Reese and Tiffany Roberts. Tiffany Roberts, just they make me ugly cry, and I have to tell Tiffany every time that she's awful, and she did it to me again. And Grace Draven. I love Grace Draven. And okay, that's what I wrote. Oh, and Anna Guire. I could go on. I'm sorry. I picking one is hard, but like if I can have a dozen, yeah, easy.
One of the questions to join the Abduct Me SFRCon group is put one favorite author, one favorite book. 99% of the answers that come through on there are calling me evil for asking such a question, because no one can pick just one.
It's impossible.
Let's go to YD.
Ooh-wee. Okay. See, authors that I like to read in my downtime and influence my own books. First off, I write so much, I rarely have downtime these days, but Arlie Smith, Octavia Butler, and Emelita Ray. Especially Octavia Butler. She writes some out there stuff, and I love the fact that she's so brave to do it. And it gives me courage to think outside the box too. Make it as alien as possible, because it's an alien book.
Julie?
Sorry, I couldn't find the unmute button. Can you hear me? Yeah, for me, Rebecca Royce. Hers is a focus on reverse harem, but she has some that are sci-fi romance, not just contemporary. She does a very good job of giving all the characters a unique personalities, and so that's a big influence when I'm writing reverse harem. But for a more basic male on female action, I like Ellen Wynn. Her stuff is just, to me, it's light, it's humorous, it's easygoing. Kirsten Fay is another one, same thing. If I want a little bit, I think, more danger involved, then I'll go to, I'm drawing a blank here, Allison Ames, Claire Kent. So pretty much everybody that writes sci-fi romance, I find, is a good influence just because they all have their unique strengths. And it comes down to, am I in the mood for something that's darker or sweeter or more action or whatever?
I love Claire Kent. I wish she would write more. Let's do Cassie.
Let's do Cassie. Hi. All right, so what are some authors who do science fiction romance that I read in my downtime? Correct. Well, I have to tell you that I realized when I was on this science fiction romance journey that I had kind of a type. And the first type that I realized was when I was walking in a grocery store and I saw Christine Feehan's Dark Guardian. Have you seen that cover with Lucian the vampire? And he's so compelling, and the book delivered on the cover. And then the next thing that got me was Slave to Sensation by Nalini Singh and her Changeling series. And I realized then, oh, I like that beastie nature with the beastie guy. And then I found Czar by Alana Khan. Have y'all read that? Then everything kind of came together for me for science fiction and the beasts and all of that. So when I'm asked what I read in my downtime, I science fiction, once I went into the black of science fiction, I never went back. But it was a progression that had a beast element too. So that influenced me. And I can see that looking back through the progression of my books. And what do I read in my downtime? Well, Alana Khan blew my mind with Czar, and she's got a new book coming out, Czar Ren, where she just stomps on your heart and then gives it back to you, gold plated, you know. I'd say Dustwalker by Tiffany Roberts was like on that par too. So those are two of my favorites. So yeah, I mean, that's what I read. And that's all I have to say right now. Thanks.
Lee?
Okay, I got a better answer than I did for my last one, the last question. Susan Grant, I'm top billing because when I was a baby author pre-published, I was writing Prophecy, which is my first book, and I was just buying books, sci-fi romance books, and I had a monogamous male-female relationship, and all these others were like lots of guys. And it wasn't what I was writing, and I was getting very discouraged and thought, okay, well, there's no market for what I'm writing. And the very next day, this book called The Star King by Susan Grant arrives in my mailbox, and I read it through like in one day, and it literally saved Prophecy from the trash, because I had thrown my latest printed out version of Prophecy in the trash, literally. And I read it and I was like, oh my God, there are people who write the same thing I do out there. And so I pulled Prophecy out of the trash. So Susan Grant gets full credit for saving Prophecy, and I've met her since then, and we've become friends. Anyway, I think the others, Laurie A. Green, who writes Inherit the Stars series, I love those. Pippa J has Keir, which is Keir, and love that book. Really love that book. But it's a blue alien, so it's kind of like, okay, yeah, I love blue aliens. So, and I think one of the other series that really impacted me and with all the feel good stuff was Christine Pope's only sci-fi romance series. It's called the Gaian consortium series. And I absolutely adore that series. And let's see, other than that, Regine Abel, I love her stuff. And Cynthia Sachs and her cyborgs, love that. Honey Phillips, she was one of the first authors that I knew that I read. And that was, I loved her stuff too. And there's so many, it's just a few. There's so freaking many. So I'm trying to keep it brief.
Remy?
Okay, so I've got a couple. I had to pull up my Kindle to make sure that I didn't forget anybody. I like to read a lot, and so even when I've got a looming deadline, I tend to procrastinate by going, oh, you know what? Okay, work doesn't sound interesting. Let's read something instead. So I end up on Kindle a lot, and my favorite authors to read, like my go-tos for science fiction romance, are I like Victoria Aveline's Clevelandian series, and I actually got to meet her at one of my very first events, and that was fun. So she's actually the first paperback book that I have on my shelf that's science fiction romance. I would have to say, obviously, Ruby Dixon, although I've pretty much gone through her collection. And definitely Amanda Milo. And so I started out with her Stolen by an Alien series, and I ended up somewhere around Beth's Stable, which is definitely my first reverse harem read science fiction romance. And I figured, if Amanda can do 5, why can't I do 20? So, and that's as you can tell, she influenced me quite a bit. But I definitely go back to those 3 pretty solidly because they're solid reads. They're really good. They hit the right tropes for me. They're not there's no excessiveness in them. The romance and the world building are both pretty prominent and very well done. And as far as older authors go, though, you really can't go wrong with Anne McCaffrey. I forget who that was that mentioned it earlier. Was it Nancy? Yeah, Nancy. Yeah, I didn't realize that Anne McCaffrey wasn't on my list of original reads, but the Tower of the Hive series, that one, A+. Like, I actually have the 90s released paperbacks of her series, the Rowan series, in my living room. I kidnapped them off of my dad, and he has been informed he will never get them back because they just don't make them anymore. The old school covers, they were nice. But I digress. Yeah, definitely I would have to give my hat off to Amanda Milo for inspiring the 20-man reverse harem that I'm currently writing back here. So
I have a question, Remy.
yes.
How many reverse harem do you already have out of these 20?
2.
Here you go.
Let me take that.
And here's another one.
Oh God, more, Cassie?
Well, you have 2.
That's true.
There you go.
Coordinating bananas now. I love Beth Stable. Now that you said it, I think that might have been my very first reverse harem, now that I think about it. Okay, I think go to the next question. Did you decide to write SFR before reading any in the genre? Do you read a lot of SFR for research? And let's go to Cassie first.
Well, I have to unmute. Okay. Hello. Do I read a lot of science fiction romance? Hell yeah. I'm obsessed with it. That's all I want to read. I have to read out of the genre to clear myself sometimes. I'm writing it all the time. I used to be a whale reader. That's all I did. I didn't even really watch a lot of TV. So when I decided to start writing, I knew exactly what I wanted to write. Now, reverse harem is something I didn't get to talk about in my first, what influenced me in answering that question. And I wanted to mention a couple of books that really influenced me that I didn't get a chance to mention. Morgan Hawk and her MMF series, Interstellar Discipline, was amazing because it introduced relationships where more than one person wasn't in conflict. They enjoyed each other. There was joking. It was a lot of humor. It was interesting. And then there's an author named Mima. I don't know if you've ever heard of her. She's not publishing anymore, but she wrote Reverse Harem that was amazing, and it has been a great influence to me. So when Remy mentioned Amanda Milo and Beth Stable, it made me think about those two authors too. So just to be clear about what question I'm on. God, I knew I'd lose it. Where am I?
Did you decide to write SFR before reading any in the genre? And do you read a lot of SFR for research?
Oh, I think I answered that. I'll hopefully be ready for the next one. I have lots of answers.
Okay, let's go to Julie.
Yes, I was writing sci-fi romance before I realized it was sci-fi romance. I was always enthralled from starting, even with the Star Trek books, what I was looking for was a connection between the characters. And those books didn't have any romance in it. So I started writing my own books. And then I started reading some books, but there was a romance subplot, but these still weren't romance. Then I got into the romance genre, but it wasn't sci-fi. Again, it was Highlander and Regency and whatever. So I was pulling those elements together on my own before I discovered, hey, there are actually other authors out there who do write sci-fi romance. And I mean, to me, that there's no going back after that. It's like I wouldn't want to read anything else, although I do read another genre still. When a book is recommended to me or there's a particular item I need to research. So yeah, I look at sci-fi, the romance, and I research, I read everything that I can. When I was learning about how to write romance, because I was writing with the romance as a subplot, but not as my main theme, so to speak. The advice I had read at the time was read everything and anything in romance, even if it's plots that you don't like. If you don't like shifters or whatever, you should still read it. Good romance, bad romance, so you learn. And I read every type of romance I can get my hand on, and I found things that I didn't think I would like that I ended up loving. So to me, research is to read any and everything and not to get stuck with just what I'm comfortable with. So that to me is research.
YD?
Are we on the question of why, or the research one? That question? Well, it's gonna take a while to explain this. I was born in a refugee camp and got sponsored to America. So for a long time, I was an alien resident in the States. And with that comes a lot of cultural assimilation and things that you go through. For me, even to this day, couple that with marrying someone who's outside of my culture as well, you get the cultural clash, which again, to this day, despite how long we're married, we still hit it sometimes. Whether or not I read a whole bunch of sci-fi just for the sake of writing sci-fi, no. I read across the board, from splatterpunk, bizarro, monster books, sci-fi, anything that tickles my fancy, I'll pick it up. Memoirs, whatever. But when I do write, it's more based off, I guess, my own experiences, feeling like an alien in the country, being called an alien in the country, being treated different anyways, because despite getting your citizenship or not, people still look at you different. And it's the same with these books, these sci-fi books, because essentially the majority of the plot is Earthlings becoming aliens in alien territory, right? And so that's what I kind of base it off. And I find it funny when I read these, I guess, arranged marriage type things, because I'm a daughter of an arranged marriage. And so again, I based it a lot on, I guess you can say, more of the reality of it. And I know a lot of readers don't enjoy that as much because they read fantasy to escape for the happy feeling. But I'm the kind of person who rather write, this is the reality of things and this is the things that could happen, because till this day, I still feel it sometimes.
Remy.
Well, you're going to have to ask me again because I was really invested in YD's story.
Did you decide to write SFR before reading any in the genre? Do you read a lot of SFR for research?
First question, did I decide to write it before reading it? No, I did not. As a matter of fact, I did not even, it wasn't even within my perspective to write about aliens and romance together. I actually started in PNR because I was a Twilight kid. So that's what I knew and that's what I liked. And I was like, you know what? This sounds great. We'll write werewolves, we'll write vampires. And then, like I said, I stumbled across the Ice Planet Barbarian series, and that is all she wrote because, I mean, those spurs, need I say more? But now you're gonna have to ask me the second half again. You see, it's been a day, guys. It's been a day.
Do you read a lot of SFR for research?
I do. I read a lot of research for pleasure too, but I read a lot of research. I read a lot of sci-fi romance for research, just to kind of see what the popular people are doing. You know, what kind of tropes seem to be big. And I mean, as dumb as this sounds, I read it to see what I want to do instead of what they're doing. Because I mean, yeah, I could just copy the same tropes as everybody else that seem to hit really well, because that would make sense and that would be to market. But I am nothing if not difficult and unique. So I do everything ass backwards, and I just kind of pick the tropes I don't see and I'm like, hey, this looks great. Oh, by the way, Cassie, my pack came with more. So I think 3 of these are yours. Just in case, you know, here you go. All 3 of them. All right, you ready? I'm going to pass them over to you. There you go. You can have all those back. I'll keep my 2.
We're going to expect bananas in every single one of these now.
We'll be prepared.
Let's go to Lee.
I seriously have a feeling that 2 of you made plans without the rest of us with those bananas. Thanks. It's so funny, you guys. Anyway, okay, well, the first question, I've always really been into sci-fi. My dad, when I was very, very, very little, introduced me to Star Trek, and I have been watching the original Star Trek for, well, we're just not going to talk about how many years. Anyway, all my life. And I always thought that sci-fi would be so much better if there was a romance involved. And, you know, like Han and Leia for me was just like, oh, yes. So I got really excited. And then they broke them up at the last 3 episodes. I was like, oh, I wanted them to stay together through all of this, you know, horror that they were living through, and I wanted them to be that strong, you know. So yeah, I think romance instead of sci-fi is definitely something that I've always wanted. or romance in my sci-fi, sorry. Let's see. Yeah, I read a lot of sci-fi romance for research, and pleasure too. It's part pleasure, part research. Right now I'm starting to formulate a triad romance involving one alien and two humans, and male, male, female. And I've never written anything like this before. So I'm starting to read books like that, you know, and so y'all, I know some of you have those. Yes, I'm reading them. Anyway, so that was yeah, research definitely. And I just wanted to add, YD, I read, or no, I'm sorry, I was watching PBS, and this is something I never realized in all my experiences in life, that there was a program I was watching in which somebody said referring to people, immigrants, as aliens is offensive. And that really resonated with me. And it's like, okay, well, it never did to begin with, but I know that some people do. But then I started thinking, wait a minute, what about real aliens in our books? I mean, that's kind of offensive too, I mean, it could be offensive to them too. And I thought I would take that and use it. And I did use that in my Silver Star series, where aliens are not aliens, they are off-worlders. That's the way when they're visiting Earth, they're not from Earth, so they're called off-worlders. But anyway, it was just really, it just touches my heart, everything you've been through, and I really admire you.
Thank you. It's not half of it, but yeah.
Yeah, I understand. There's a lot more to that story.
And Nancy.
Oh boy. So I definitely read my first science fiction romance before I decided to try writing it. And that was Ice Planet Barbarians. And I really liked it. So I had to read a whole bunch more of, well, Ruby Dixon didn't have a lot out at that time, but I just read lots in the genre to see what's popular, who do I like, how can I emulate them, why do I like these books, and also to look at the market, like why are these books popular, why are they resonating with people, and then to see like the tropes I like to play with, and then how I can make it my own. So then I continue to read a lot now as well, especially if a book is doing particularly well and I look at it and I'm like, I don't know why that's popular, so I have to read it to find out what the magic is. And I've discovered some books I really like that I would not have looked at if I wasn't curious as to why they were successful. So that's it. I'm basic and nosy, I guess.
I actually don't read a lot of sci-fi anymore, and it's something I've grappled with ever since starting to write it, because it upsets me that I don't read it anymore, and I find that I can't, because I don't want it to influence them what I'm writing, or like I feel like I am 24/7 wrapped around aliens and I have to like separate, so I read outside of SFR. But I'm the same way, like if something pops up and people are loving that, I'm like, I better check it out, figure out why everyone's freaking out about that. And then I do try to read books, like friends' books and stuff, when they send it to me, but I'm a very slow reader, and so that doesn't always work either. Okay. What about sci-fi romance attracts you to the genre over other romance genres such as contemporary, etc.? And let's start with Lee first.
I didn't expect you to do that. Oh my gosh. Yeah, sci-fi romance, writing sci-fi romance. There are no rules. You get to make it all up. It's my favorite part. Let's see, I actually went through the questions ahead of time so I wouldn't forget anything. And we're getting to the point where it's like, okay, I don't remember what I said. But yeah, there are a few rules like physics. You got to obey those laws. But, other than that, I think it's really wide open, and you can be so creative as an author. when you're creating these new worlds and new aliens and new cultures and you know, new physical attributes. So so yeah, that's
Cassie.
Lee, that was such a fantastic segue. Physical attributes. Yes. So perfect. Let's be really real about why we love science fiction romance. Okay. Yes. There's so many reasons, but for me, it's a very simple answer. It's unlimited possibilities. Remy is going to the limits of what that is too, but you know, I have a little bit of a limit, but frankly, there isn't any limit, and I love it. You can take it where you want.
If we happen to have an artist watching, can we please have a picture drawn of Cassie petting bananas? I will pay money for it. Let's go to Julie.
I think we're all going to have pretty much the same answer. There's just so many possibilities. You're not restricted. You don't have to worry about the laws of current everyday life. You can do whatever you want. So yeah, you do have basic physics, but you know, you can even play with that and you can find ways around it, but you can explore so many different ways and make up different societies, different rules, different religions, and just have fun with it. And I mean, you still are going to end up with some of this, you know, the usual tropes, but presented in different ways. You're going to have, again, it's just so much fun to just go with your imagination. There's no limits.
Remy?
Okay. So there's a couple of different things that make me write in science fiction. And yes, I mean, the strange beans are definitely a plus. But the creative license, like Leah said earlier, I mean, there's literally no rules. If I want to make a planet with no gravity so that a fat girl doesn't have to feel like, you know, it's a struggle to walk to the market underneath the hot sun, then I can make that planet. Fuck it, you know, like it works. The draw to things that are not on my planet, because let's face it, have you seen men these days? Like, because I see them, I see plenty of them. I see a lot more than I want to see of half of them. And really, like, where's the draw anymore? But the third reason is definitely like, so escapism, because personally, like, I'm broke, I live in the middle of nowhere, everybody around me sucks, and I don't have real life friends that, you know, have free time. Everybody else is all doing their own stuff. So I feel like in my books and in my writing, I can escape to somewhere that's not here. And it just like it, you know, I'm just in a better mood when I'm writing. Now, if you ask my kids, they'll say that mom's just off limits when she's writing. But it's just overall a better mood to be in my books and in that mindset. And I mean, since we're on the topic of bananas, I mean, where else? You're not going to find on Earth, you're not going to find a man who's hung like this, okay? But you're going to find it in book 4 of my series. Cassie, by the way, how do you keep yours from getting so beat up? Because mine look like they have been through hell and back. And I mean, that's completely plausible considering there's 20 of them in my series. But I mean, Jesus, I didn't treat them this bad. Okay, you can, you can go after the next person. I'm goofball.
Nancy.
I blanked on the question. I'm so sorry.
What about sci-fi romance attracts you to the genre over other romance genres?
Oh, I'm going to be honest. I find contemporary romance to be really boring. I'm sorry. I'm so petty. And it's like, oh, he's just rich. He's just a CEO. He's just a rock star. He's also not a vampire. not interested. But I like sci-fi and fantasy because you can combine all these elements in sci-fi. You can do anything in sci-fi. You can have your vampire rock star or your werewolf CEO. I should write one of those actually. I like outrageous combinations, and science fiction, and wow, my mind is just scattered. I've always enjoyed sci-fi and fantasy. Also like historical romances a lot, so that's in my books. You see me combining some historical elements with the sci-fi, like my Jane Austen and vampire, or Jane Austen and werewolf book. Because I wanted to see if I could do it, and I did. So yeah, that's why I like sci-fi. It's just full of possibilities of combinations, and contemporary is boring to me. I'm sorry. I need tentacles. I need something extra. Okay, I'm done. I swear.
YD.
Ooh, well, I read everything as well as write across genres. I write everything. If it's a challenge, I want to take it. Sci-fi wise, it's like everybody says, the ability to create the world is vast. And I enjoy trying to put in sci-fi the internal human struggle, that no matter where you are in the universe, each being will have this struggle. For example, in my book, The Essence of Esme, she is like a size 20, but her human struggle was purpose. She couldn't find her purpose. And when she got taken by aliens and put into, chambers on her trip, it was actually her weight that saved everybody. It was the purpose of, who are you gonna be? No matter where you are, no matter what your situation, because that doesn't change the fact of who you are. That human struggle of, this is the definition of me. I can only be me. And I like that despite having built an entire world and it's fun and everything, you still have that connection of every human being on this planet has certain struggles, and it makes you connect harder to the story.
Okay, our next question is, we covered this a little bit. Do you read outside SFR? So if you don't have anything else to add, I can skip you, but I do think we should touch on it real quick. So I'm going to start with Julie.
I do read outside SFR, not too often. Well, if it's romance, I can read anywhere. It doesn't have to be within the sci-fi romance. But I have a critique partner, and she writes contemporary romance. So I have to read hers, and I'm not into contemporary so much, just because, like Nancy said, it's kind of boring, whereas you get the unexpected with sci-fi. But I do like to read occasionally when somebody in my group will recommend a book. I wanted to explore male on male, and I hadn't read any good ones. So one of my beta readers gave me a suggestion, and for me, I wanted to read it, not because of the contemporary aspect, but to see how does the author handle everything that goes along with the male genre. It was an excellent book. I can't remember her name, the author. Excellent book. Did that make me want to continue reading in male? No, but for me, it was a way of seeing a different approach. So a little bit of research there, having something different, a little bit of a break from the sci-fi part of it, because when you've gone through all of Ruby Dixon's books or all of Amanda Milo's books, and sometimes you just want something a little bit different that you're not going to compare back to your own writing, which I often find myself doing. It can be very hard reading one of my favorite authors, because I think, wow, she just writes, beautifully, or she's perfect, and I can get a little self-conscious about my own writing at that point. So it's a nice break for me to read outside sci-fi romance and not have to be comparing myself to one of my peers.
Lee.
Yeah, I totally agree with what Julie just said. It's as much as I love reading all my friends' sci-fi romances, I do need a break, and but I do learn stuff from them. I will say I do learn stuff from them, and that's refreshing. So, but I think that let's see. I read outside of sci-fi. I will read Gail Carriger's Parasol Protectorate series, steampunk. Oh my gosh, years and years ago, I started reading the Durini series by Catherine Kurtz. I don't know if you guys know about that, but that's high fantasy, and this kind of old school high fantasy, and lots and lots of fun. And she hasn't written anything in years and years and years, and I want more. And anyway, there's a big following, cult following of her series, and yeah. Let's see, urban fantasy. I absolutely adore the Last Vampire series by R.A. Stefan. She just had book 2 of her new series within that world, the 6th demon come out, and there's another book. Apparently, I thought the second one was going to be the last one, and I was ready to cry. And but that's there's another one coming, so it's good. And then really the closest I get to contemporary is Suzanne Brockman's SEAL Team 16. And that's about the closest I get to contemporary.
YD.
Ooh, let's see. Do I read outside of it? I already mentioned I do. I read it all, and I try to write it all as well, from African American fiction to, street lit, monsters, PNR, sci-fi. I do understand what the other girls are saying. With contemporary, it can become monotonous, and I think that's why when I write contemporary, there's a lot of more cultural clash. Like my nerd series has a Malaysian man who has to be a virgin before marriage because of his Muslim culture, who falls in love with a Puerto Rican woman. You can only imagine how that goes. And so when I find things that stand out like a punch in the face, I love it. I don't care what genre it is. As long as you give me something fresh, something new, something that will be ingrained in my mind forever, because of just how it is. I'm more than happy to read whatever someone passes my way, if it lasts inside my mind like that.
Nancy.
Oh yeah, I'm a very eclectic reader. In my Facebook group, every Sunday I do like a share post where I say like what I've been reading for the week, the 2 books like that stood out to me, and they're not always SFR. They're whatever I happened to read that week that I liked, and readers will see like I read a lot of stuff. And I do seem to go through phases. Like right now, I want to read a lot of mysteries and thrillers. That's been very satisfying for me. I like historical romances, really like historical where there's also a murder mystery to solve. That's fantastic. I need more of those, and they're hard to find. So PRN, urban fantasy, the queer romance I like a lot. Some contemporary I will read. As much as I poo-pooed contemporary earlier, I will read some. There are some authors I do enjoy. I like Lily Morton and Alice Winters because I think they're funny. Their brand of humor works for me, and humor is so subjective, but they amuse me, and they write contemporary, so I read them. Even though Alice Winters also has vampires and werewolves and other series. I keep trying to read rom-coms and I just keep getting disappointed because the type of humor that's more mainstream, I think doesn't appeal to me. I like snark and I like banter, and the cutesy, cartoony rom-com covers always seem kind of bland in comparison to what I want. I want wit. I want razor sharp wit. I found one once. It was actually a historical. It was A Wicked Husband by Mila Village. I'm Mia. It was Mia something. I am butchering her name, but the title was A Wicked Husband, and it was an enemies to lovers arranged marriage, and the banter between the two of them, where they really dislike each other, but they're so good at fighting. Oh my God, it was perfection. So there you go. That's a recommendation. So pretty much the only thing I don't like to read is nonfiction. Only if I have to research something, that's when I'll be grabbing a nonfiction book. But yeah. Oh, and military fiction. I'm not interested in military fiction. So that's it. It's a much shorter list of what I don't read than what I do. There you
go. Remy.
I'm with Nancy. I mean, outside of military fiction, which is, oh God, as a girl whose dad was in the Navy, I have no desire to read military fiction at all. Point blank, period, full stop. Outside of that, I will pick up just about anything that crosses my way, anything that somebody sends me. Everything is market research at this point, because like YD, I just write whatever I can get my hands on and whatever I can sink my teeth into. So yeah, short answer, yes, I read everything.
Cassie?
Yes, I absolutely read outside of SFR. Interestingly, if I want a truly tender book, I often go to MM Books, little cutesy ones. But I've got a dark mafia MM romance series that I'm almost addicted to. It's called Cold Hard Cash by K.L. Hires, Hiers. The story is dark and it's compelling, and I just like the characters, and I don't even know how I found this book, but I like it. I like the series. So yeah, there you go.
I guess I am the opposite, and to some of you guys, like I will go for contemporary every time outside of, like, I guess because I like the complete opposite of what I'm writing. And I can't compare it. Like I do find myself comparing what I'm writing if I read SFR or any of the genres I normally write in. With contemporary, I just am in the story, and I think that's why I like it so much, because it's not what I normally do. For this next question, everybody watching, you can also add your favorite comfort reads down in the comments because we want to know what they are. So the question is, do you have an SFR book that you reread or a comfort read? And we are going to go with YD first.
I haven't read in a while, besides beta reading for others, but I do remember after I read it the first time, what was that Amanda Milo book with the Blindfall and Bash's book? Those are my two comfort reads. Blindfall because it reminds me again of that human experience of love can come in such different ways. The slow and steady, the undercurrent that you don't even see until the rug is pulled out from under you, versus the love that is obvious in a lot of our romance books, where it's like, oh, look, it's a slow growth of feelings for each other, la, la, la. But I think Blindfall, it really got to me. It makes me feel like it's hot chocolate on a cold day. That was one of my comfort reads.
Remy.
Just to stay in character here, because we all know I'm wild at this point, my comfort read is really anything with a dick in it. If it's out of the pants, I'll read it, and it's comforting to me. With that aside, this is going to sound terribly cliche, but The Host by Stephanie Meyer, because it was honestly, May Lightning Strike Me Down Now. It was her better book out of all of the books that she ever wrote. And it correct me if I'm wrong. I see you nodding up there, YD. Obviously you've read it too. It was sci-fi, wasn't it? Didn't they? It was
Yes,
like
it
they,
was.
yeah,
Sci-fi
they were
that took
invaded.
place on Earth.
Yeah. So I mean, though I kind of revert back to sci-fi at this point, it's not my only comfort read. I'm just drawing a blank at the, because bananas. But but yeah, honestly, I don't have one set book I go back to read. Um okay, that's a lie. Recently I've gone back and reread The Never King 3 times in the past 2 weeks. But um that's for an entirely different reason. Well, I guess it's for the same reason at this point. Okay. But yeah, I that's where I'm at.
Julie?
My comfort read is not really heavily on the romance. It's Lois McMaster Bujold did a series, Barkoskan Saga, and I just love her style of writing. Her characters, which is smart, witty, fun, good action, just everything perfect about the books. A little bit of romance in there. But just an easy read in the sense that you relax, you don't get stressed out reading it. Um, I just would read anything in that series. But a lot of times, usually what I try to do is I save certain books that are coming out, like Ruby Dixon comes out with a new book, and I won't run to read it. I will put that aside for when I need something that I know I can rely on that's going to be a comfort read. And then when I want to sit down, I know I can go directly to that. I knew what to expect with it, and that's my comfort read.
Nancy?
Oh, well, you know how I feel about picking one. Um, so it's not necessarily sci-fi, but it is sci-fi fantasy. Radiance by Grace Draven. Um, I love that book. I like the series, but I love the first 2 books, and I've read them several times. I've also read Barbarian's Mate several times by Ruby Dixon. Hayden and Josie, they've got that banter that these to lovers, slow burn banter that I love it, and it hits all the right notes for me. And I had and I have no impulse control. I don't save books I know are going to be comfort reads for me. I gobble them up immediately. But I if a book looks like it's going to make me cry, I do save that for when I'm in the mood for a good cry. I recently read A Lady for a Duke by Alexis Hall. It's a historical romance, and it's brilliant. And I was just ugly crying the first 25% of the book, and I knew it was going to do it for me. So I had to be in the mood to cry. So that's the opposite of a comfort read. I guess that's a wreck you read.
I like to cry. I like that. I would consider my comfort reads are ones that make me cry. They're both contemporary, but Linda Cage and Tammy Faulkner, I think is how you say it. Both of them write heroines and heroes with disabilities, and they overcome crazy challenges, and I will completely zone out while I'm reading them and bawl my eyes out, and I feel amazing afterwards. Let's go to Cassie.
I do have comfort reads. Lauren Donor, she just floats my boat. Her New Species series. If I just need to slide into something easy, Fury and Justice, man, they float my boat. I actually read Rawls Woman recently. It just struck in my head. I needed to read that one. And then if I want the weird, and I do often, and I want it to be comfortable, I'll go into Scorpion's Mate or Kraken's Mate by Susan Trombley. Those are the 2 that really float me for that. I guess I just like it weird. I don't even go to contemporary anymore.
Someone put Venomous in there. Oh God, that's a good one. I will read. I've probably read that book like 18 times at least. Lee.
Okay, so yeah, I think I'm going to be reading YD's books pretty soon. They might become comfort reads here. I think probably Susan Grant's The Star King, who I mentioned earlier. I like let's see, Regina Bell. She has some amazing stories that I will go back and reread and really love them. This is going to sound maybe a little self-serving, but my very first book, Prophecy, I love to go back and read that one because I started writing that in my head when I was in high school. So it's been with me practically all my life. And so when I go back and I reread it and I find the typos that I've missed still, it's just, I don't know, it takes me back to being a teenager and when the story first fell into my head. And it's, anyway, yeah.
That's really cute. I could never, ever read something that I wrote that long ago. I probably wouldn't get through the first paragraph without crying about it.
Well, I'm going to say, I just want to add something that I thought about. Nancy was talking about rom-coms just not doing it for her. I'm going to mention this probably the next question or two. I think it's going to come up. Amanda Milo, I just discovered 2 of her books, Contaminant and Contagion. Have you guys read those? Oh my freaking God, those are hilarious. And well, I'll talk about them later. Anyway.
I do want to deviate for a second because we did get a question in the comments and that was from Cecilia. What helped you all make the decision to start writing and self-publishing? We've talked about this in other panels, but we can quickly touch on it again for her. And I'll start with Remy first.
I don't remember what made me want to start it because I have wanted to do this as long as I can remember. I actually went to college for English so that I could be a better author. So, I mean, I think it was just because I had a crap childhood. It might not have been the same type of childhood as other people's crap childhood, but my only escape was books and music. And my parents quickly learned that they could take both of them from me for punishment, but they couldn't stop me from creating the stories in my head. So that was kind of where I went. That was my safe space. As cliche as that is, that was my safe space. I could do whatever I wanted in my own head. And so stories became my haven. And I'm not a patient person, which is why I did not wait for traditional publishing, as is evidenced by the fact that I push out a different book every month and a half or so. I don't wait around. I like instant gratification. And that for me, it was an easy choice. Yeah, it might be a lot more work and I might be sucking at marketing, but it's just more appealing to me to self-publish than it is to be traditional published.
Julie?
What was the question again, please?
What helped you make the decision to start writing and self-publishing?
Well, I've been writing since I was a teenager, and I tried going traditional, and I came close a few times. And then one of the editors wanted me to start changing this about the character and that. And ultimately, when I discovered indie, self-publishing, it's like, oh my gosh, I can write what I want. I don't have to worry about the fact that I'm not closing the door or going fade to black. And I could do whatever I want with it and just have fun and do it on my time frame, be my own boss. And, it's limitless. And I don't have to worry about whether I'm making this one editor happy or not. I'm worried about whether I'm making the readers happy, because the two are not always the same. And I just enjoy it. It's my chance to be creative and do what I want.
YD?
Okay, but can you hear me? Did I unmute? By now, you should know my past is not like anybody else's. Let's start off with my parents are illiterate, and because they escaped the fall of the government in our motherland and a Holocaust, escaping the jungles to a refugee camp, they don't find importance in things like reading when it has to do with survival. And so when I found that I like reading, it was hard to fight for it. Like literally, I had to fight for it to go to the library because they couldn't see a reason why I needed it. Because in life, you survive in different ways. And I wasn't allowed to have friends. So I was always locked in my room. And sometimes home wasn't always happy. Well, not sometimes, all the time. Home wasn't happy. And so the only thing I could do to, let's see, exercise the emotions that ran through me, because Asian culture, you save face, you don't come out yelling and screaming. This is why you never really see that in Asian cultures, like calling the cops. And so the only way for me to exercise these volatile emotions within me, because I had no one to talk to, I wrote poetry. And then later into my adulthood, when I finally, have relationships and get married, I finally got this freedom. Like I can just read whatever I want. It was the strangest, freeing emotion. Because again, for almost 20 years of my life, you had to live with a different cultural thought. But now that I'm on my own, I can read, I can find things I like. And I started with, of course, just binge reading everything I could because, man, I don't know when this freedom's gonna go because I don't know. You got this fear that's been ingrained in you now that it can be taken, just like Remy said, it can be taken away because it's been taken away so many times. And so I binge read and I started a Goodreads account. I started writing reviews, and I do always have a certain poetic flair to my views because that's just the writer I am. And then I gained a good following, and they were the ones that pushed me and said, maybe you should start writing books. And I did.
That is awesome. Nancy?
Okay, so why did I decide to start self-publishing? I've always been a reader and I've always written for a long time. And out of college, I tried to do the traditional way where you write a manuscript, you submit a query, and you get rejected. And I don't think those books were necessarily bad, but I can, looking back now, I'm a much better writer now than I was, 20 years ago. But it's hard selling yourself in a query letter. Just something you need practice and experience to do. And maybe I just got more chutzpah now that it's much easier for me to give you an elevator pitch for what the book is about. But as 25 years ago, I had no idea to explain what the book was about. And so anyway, I was languishing. I was writing in obscurity, languishing. And then I had a friend who worked at Smashwords who clued me into monster erotica, that there was a thing that people were writing these short stories and they were publishing them and making money, real money, not huge amounts, but like, actual dollar monies. And I'm like, I can do that. This stuff isn't highbrow literature. This looks easy. Oh my God, why can't I be doing that? So that was it. It was a dare. They dared me to write a short monster smut. I've told this story many times before, that my friend who writes under the name Abigail Mist, we wrote up a list and rolled some dice to matching a monster to a porn scenario, and that's it. We spent a weekend writing it. It was a 5,000 word story about a lake monster, and it's terrible. You can still buy it, but I don't recommend it. But that was my very first venture into self-publishing, and I liked it, and I kept doing it, and like to think I got better at it. So there you are. There, it was a dare.
Lee?
Well, thank you, Cecilia, for the question. This is a really good one. Let's see. I wasn't sure if I was going to try and go trad or hybrid or self-pub. I was, when I was a little baby author before I got published. I joined my local RWA chapter, and we had a Christmas party, and I don't know if do any of you know Carolyn Jewell? She was in our chapter, and she has been writing since I was in high school and publishing trad since I was in high school. So she was trying to get all her books back, and she was talking to me, and she asked me, well, have you decided what you're going to do, how you're going to get your book published? And I started talking about it, and I wasn't sure, and leaning toward hybrid maybe, and but what thought maybe trad would be good too. She said, okay, let me talk to you about something involving trad. She said, I'm trying to get my books back from trad authors. I have 5 left to go, and that was in 2015, something like that. But anyway, she said, it really depends on your personality. Are you the type of person that can hand over control of your characters, of your stories to somebody else? Or do you want to be able to be in control of them and be able to write your stories as you want to write them? And all of a sudden I'm like, yeah, I'm going to self-pub. So that's how I ended up self-pubbing.
And Cassie?
I discovered Alora's Cave in the early 2000s, and I actually became friends with authors. I went to conferences with them, and I got to see behind the scenes, and really just enjoyed my time. It was wonderful. But I homeschooled my kids, and as they got older, they needed my attention. And so I devoted myself to taking care of them, and I have no regrets. But when they were all done with their schooling and had graduated, I was at loose ends. And I was talking to my husband, and he has been telling me for 10 years to write my own stories. And I had these 3 stories that were just floating in my head. They were in my head for 2 years. I was like, but honey, if I write this, it's going to be nasty. It's going to be nasty, naughty. I'm not going to write clean. And he looks at me and he says, I like naughty. He smacks my ass and walks away and says, right, woman. And so I write. And I have absolutely enjoyed every moment of this journey. So do I want to give up my control in a trad publishing situation? No. I'm writing what I want the way I want it, and I fucking love it.
I was actually a daycare provider for the Navy outside of my home when my husband was stationed over in Washington State. And every time he would deploy, I would write these little stories. And I remember for years, I was always telling him, like, I could do this. I could totally do this. And he would always say, why aren't you doing this? But I was like watching these kids all the time. And we moved out here in Connecticut, and they didn't have that program in the Navy anymore. And so I was kind of like lost. I had kids at my house from 3 to 4 a.m. until 5 to 6 p.m. And my husband was deployed again. And it was just me and my kid. And I was like bored to death. And I ended up writing Python, and he dared me to publish it. And I published it without having anybody look at it, which was a big mistake. But I did really well. And I wrote ever since then. I never watched any more kids after that, which I kind of miss it a little bit. Okay, we have about 2 more questions left. One, let's do, what are you reading right now? And let's go with Julie.
Let's see. I am reading Alien Tyrant by Ursa Dax, and this is one of those sort of a little research to see what my peers are writing. And plus, when you get to know people, you sort of say, I want to see what you write. I want to get to know their style. Plus, I still like to read sci-fi romance, and I'm always looking for a good book, so might as well try, and I'm enjoying it so far. And that's it. I'm also reading, like I said, I'm critiquing for my partner, so I'm reading, that's a sort of a little BDSM contemporary romance cowboy with the Gentleman's Club. So we got some interesting scenes in there that I'm enjoying. That's it.
Cassie.
I think I already outed the book I was reading most recently. I think I said it was Rouse Woman, but it isn't. It was another donor. I can't help it. What can I say? I'm allergic. I mean, I'm like addicted. I'll post it in the chat. But it was in that series. It was the last one. It was the daddy. Do y'all remember that series? It was the Zorn Warriors. It was the last one, not the first one. I can't
Is that the one with the girl that was from a bar and she's older?
Yes, bartender who kicked ass. I think that's why I like it so much. I like the kick-ass heroines. Thank you.
YD.
Because I write so much back to back to back to back. I mean, I'm in 11 to 12 anthologies this year, and I'm almost done writing them all. I think the last one I read that is still in my mind is Fleeing Haven by Tia Fanning, a fantasy book. It took her 18 years to finish this book, and she finally did it. And I was blown away. Blown away. It was an amazing story. I highly recommend it to everybody.
Lee.
I am currently reading Ishtar's Blade by Lisa Blackwood, which is a fantasy romance. I think it's a romance. I'm not sure. It's kind of not romancing yet. I mean, it is, but it's like, I'm not sure how this is going to end, if it's going to end with a HEA or Happy for Now to qualify for a romance, but it is a really good story. I'm very much enjoying it. And the other ones that I was going to tell you about was, I just finished reading before that, was Contaminated. Wait a minute. Yeah, Contaminated and Contagion by Amanda Milo. And these two books was just so perfect. My husband and I are we're binge watching Monk right now. Do you remember that TV show, Monk? Oh my God, it is just so funny. And these two, I actually saw Contagion first, and the cover, if you see the cover of this book, it is the best cover I have ever seen in my life. It just totally, completely explains what the book is about, because you've got this human woman with this alien. I mean, it's just like, things coming out of him and his back and everything. And he's climbing on her because he's a germaphobe. And it was just like, so I kind of did it backwards. I read the second book first because you're not supposed to buy, book by because of its cover. Well, I did that time and really loved it. And then I read the first one and it was even funnier. And so anyway, she did an awesome job, and I'm going to be reading more of her too. So
Nancy.
Well, this is going to sound like I'm kissing up, but I just finished your book, Erin. I finished that last night. You have a cat guy alien. I mean, come on. That's my weakness. But today I started That Time I Got Drunk and Needed a Love Potion at a Werewolf by Kimberly Lemming. The title's amusing. I read the previous one in the series, which is That Time I Got Drunk and Saved a Demon, which I purely picked up because the title charmed me. I was like, I want to give that a shot. And it is humorous, but it's the type of humor that works for me. It's a lot of banter and a lot of food related jokes too. I guess I really like food stuff. I have been reading a lot of lighthearted books recently. It's just what I've been needing more in the world. I don't want to read something too serious right now. I'm just not in the mindset for it. I want fluffy and I want comforting things. So eating love potions out of werewolf, I really hope it turns out good. I've only read the first chapter and I'm sold.
That's literally like on my Kindle to download. I cannot wait to start it. Remy.
Okay, let me start that off by saying, Cassie, I'm disappointed in you. She said food-related jokes, and I did not see a single banana on your screen. Like, I mean, I even held mine up. This is your shtick. I'm just participating in it. Where the there we go. There we go. Okay, so I just finished Priest by Sierra Simone, and that was an adventure. Anybody here read that one yet? Yeah, YD, I know you did. That was an adventure, and I still have not figured out how to explain to my husband that that's on our shared Kindle list. Okay, and I just started reading Ravaged by Monsters by gosh, it keeps disappearing on me here. Hold on, I've got the author name because I want you to read it because it's really good. Sort of, no, not quite the Three Wolves. The story follows the four terrors, and they're kind of like these top guys in the supernatural world. One of them is like a werewolf being. One of them is called the Empty Man. He's a ghost. One of them is called the Devourer, and I think the closest you come to him is a gargoyle. And then there's another one called the the Creeper. And I'm not quite sure what he is, but it's by Katie May and Ann Denton. And I actually started reading that because I'm in some really raunchy book groups on Facebook, and one of our many readers out there decided to share like a snapshot of her Kindle when she was reading it. And if any of you are in the same groups that I'm in, you probably ran across that same snapshot, because within like 2 hours, there were 800 different comments asking for the title of that book. I actually sent the screenshot of the book page to my Monster Cox group on Facebook and asked them to tell me who it was, because I was like, one of you freaks in here knows this book. I need to know it because I need to read it. And I'm pretty much almost all the way through it, and it's good. It's good. It's really good. But I mean, that's not to say that that's all I read, but those two are right now my definite go-tos. And I'm not gonna lie, I've been slightly distracted. Have you guys noticed that my boob keeps disappearing? Like, you can see straight through that shit. 100% can see my book in the background, and it's just a green leaf, guys. I don't understand why it's invisible. So I'm just gonna stick these bananas here so that maybe the camera will focus on them instead of my. There we go. Now my tits are in the screen. Okay, move on to the next person, please. I am ridiculous. I need a drink.
Okay, we have one more question for the night. This one is, what's a book that you adore that doesn't get enough love? Recommend a little known gem, and everybody watching participate and pop something in the comments. We can add it to our reading list. And we're gonna start with Nancy.
Oh boy. Actually, I have just one suggestion. Be proud of me. So I really like the Ars Numia series by Anna Guire. So Anna Guire, everyone loves Strange Love. That's not a question, but she has a series about shifters that starts with the Leopard King that I don't think gets any love, and it's a really great series. It's kind of like a post-apocalyptic world with shifters. There are humans out there somewhere, but they're really not much in the story, and the shifters are like fighting amongst themselves. There's, I think, 5 books in this series. It's a lot of political struggle and intrigue, and also being true to yourself despite the pressures to about societal pressure. So in every story, there's the couples are mismatched in a way that's not typically conventional for their society. So I enjoyed that series. You should read it. It's great. The Leper King is the first one.
Lee?
Although the Demon King is my favorite. I think that's like book 2.
Okay, well, this was a hard one for me because I know a few. I would say Christine Pope is really known for her PNR, witches and stuff like that. But she did do a series, the Guyana, can't pronounce it. Let me see if I can pull up the book here. There you go. That's the first book in the series. It was excellent. I don't think she does a lot of promoting of it because it's not really a genre she likes writing in. I don't know, but she did such an excellent job. So I strongly recommend that series. And Fifth Gender by Gail Carriger is amazing. I absolutely love this book. And then, oh God, what was the other one? Here by Pippa J, which I mentioned at the beginning of this, the hour here. Really, really great book and very intense, very, very in depth, and it's a long book. So if you need a long book to read, it's really good.
Julie?
On the last question about which book? Let's see, Tiger and Dell series, Jennifer Roberson. It's something I read back in, date myself here, the 80s. It's, very different from today's romance. Romance has changed in that, I don't know how to describe how it has changed, but I don't know, I just love the series. I don't think people ever talk about it, if they've even heard of it. The characters, the world building is fantastic. The characters are great. It's actually a comfort read too, that when I can find where whoever's moved my books, because I just moved things around in the house. We had our floors done and things are lost. So once I find my books again, and I'll go back to reading those, just absolutely love them. That's my suggestion.
YD?
I was scrolling through my Goodreads trying to Catherine Miller's The Doridia series. I remember really enjoying that, reading it, and then couldn't stop thinking about it, and then totally forgot and couldn't search it because it's not a popular search. But yeah, Catherine Miller, Doridia series. All 3 books I really, really enjoyed. And another one, I think it's contemporary, which I've never seen people recommend it but me, is Courageous Cane. It's about, you just have to read it, but the dog saves the day. The dog that was trained to hurt people was the one that saved the day.
Cassie?
I have a book that I recommend called Evolved by N.R. Walker. And it's an MM book, but it's about a very introverted, amazingly smart guy who falls in love with an artificial intelligence. And it's like accidentally upgraded. And the artificial intelligence falls in love back. And it is really an amazing story. So I recommend that.
And Remy?
Sorry, I'm losing it because my husband walked in and he choked and like died in the doorway. I did, to my credit, I did warn him I was using these bananas for a skit with Cassie, but he started laughing and I started laughing and I've just been laughing this whole time. But if I could recommend a book that doesn't get much attention, MF Moody's Altered series, part 1 and part 2 are really good. They're a PNR series that cover not traditional shifters, and like if you like emotional damage, you'll like that series. I blasted through it.
I actually have one more book I want to mention. And I want to mention it because it's not really a romance. It is kind of a reference book that you may or may not have heard of. It's written by Morgan Hawk, and it's called The Cheater's Guide to Writing Erotic Romance. And it's great. It really gives you some cool tips and tricks on getting started writing it right. So I thought some of you might be interested in that. I'm going to put the link in that too.
Yes, link it please. I have one suggestion, and that would be Stealing Mercury by Charlie Alden. One of like the first sci-fi romance books I ever read. I don't think she finished the series, but oh my gosh, that first book is so good. And that is it. That's what we got for tonight. I want to thank everybody for watching. Thank everybody for coming and joining us. We'll have another one of these next month, and I'll put the event up so everyone can check that out. And I hope everybody has a fantastic rest of their Sunday night. And that's it. And so we'll say bye-bye.
Bye.